Welcome to Attention Retention with Jackie McManus, your source for the latest trends in transportation recruitment and retention.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Attention Retention. I'm your host, Jackie McManus, CEO and founder of KJ Media, recruitment advertising agency in the trucking industry. Today, we are diving into the heart of recruiting, retention, and recognition. And I'm so excited to welcome Shawn Nelson, Executive Director of Driver Profitability and host of the R.E. Garrison's Drivers News and Notes podcast, and Tracy Rushing, the Executive Director of Safety and HR, both at R.E. Garrison Trucking. Tracy and Shawn, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And, what really sets R.E. Garrison apart from the outsider point of view is the dedication to excellence in the industry. That is something that is on every social post, the website, driver testimonials. And in essence, you guys really set the bar really high for the industry, and truly proud to be one of the companies that helps move America forward. So today, I'm very excited to peel back the layers of your prestigious Crown Driver program and dive into the 3 R's. But before we dive into everything, could you both explain to the audience who you are, your journey, and both becoming executives at R.E. Garrison?
Sure. I've been in the industry since 1996, started out weighing trucks in a scale house in Forest, Mississippi.
Is that right?
And I've worked my way through human resources, payroll, driver settlements over the years, which we've seen develop over the years into the safety departments of the trucking companies sort of function as human resources for the drivers, especially when there are so many contractors in the mix now. And so I've been at R.E. Garrison for about 2 years, and it's still the best trucking decision I've ever made. We tag that at Garrison, and I truly love that.
And I started a long time ago in the truck, and drove a lot of time, probably a little over 1 million miles driving, and then worked my way into the office, worked my way through recruiting, into safety, worked with safety for a while, and then just it's a passion of mine to work with drivers on business and being successful in the business part of our game. You have to be a good driver, and you have to be compliant, and you have to be all those things. But you also have to be a good business person to be successful, especially in today's economy. So it's really important at R.E. Garrison to take these drivers, make them successful in today's economy. So when the economy comes back and is stronger, we'll all be stronger for it.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that, because your title was very unique in the industry, and, doing some more research, the value is tremendous, and something that should be more, talked about in a title and a position to help these drivers be successful in this economy. And, costs of goods are only going to go up, right? And managing businesses, it becomes more expensive, and there's a lot of I's to dots and T's to cross. So I think that program's just incredible that you guys have that. But I know we'll dive more into that, but we're going to kick off with the first R, recruiting. And I know this is something that you guys are really passionate about, and you can see it in all the media that's out there right now from R.E. Garrison. But what would you say are some of the more successful approaches to attracting and recruiting today's driver?
I really think that you have to approach driver recruiting now from the position of not just offering a job, but an actual career path. I think it's more important than ever that a driver sees themselves successful from the cab as a business owner, especially if you're in the partnership with Garrison. We do have some W-2 drivers, but by and large, we are a contracted fleet. For that driver to know that because they are a master of their craft in managing the tractor, that they can be successful as a business owner as well. I think drivers expect carriers to give them opportunities to be successful business owners and weight that probably equal to safe management of the tractor as well now.
Absolutely. And I think too, if you're just hiring someone for a job, it's easy to go get another job.
Sure.
And like Tracy says, if you're giving them a career path to a successful business and trying to partner with them to help them be successful, I think you're building a stronger foundation for them to stay with you long term.
Yeah, and in so many ways, they're not just a number, right? It's not just getting butts in seats. It's developing that relationship from the get-go as a partnership is how I'm really understanding it, is the language from the recruiters to drivers that are interested in learning more from your company. Let's go back a little bit further. What have you found to be some of the best attraction methods or recruiting, marketing for drivers to even hear about RE Garrison?
I think the current buzz today, and what we've even seen just this week, is the move to video. They want an insight. They want a window into what their life could look like at Garrison, and being able to not just recognize your brand, but have some sort of an association with the brand, that we are a driver-first company, and then having our own drivers express that to the driving market. And video is a big player. We met with one of our ad vendors this week, said, we've been doing some things with video post-hire for that, that first period of employment or that first part of the relationship in video, because drivers aren't where we are. So we've transitioned to video probably more so in the last year, but now introducing that window into who Garrison is from the ad. From the minute that you see our brand, you expect movement, you expect interaction. And I think that our marketing team and our recruiters have really bought into that. And it's so fun because the driver feels like they know that recruiter before they ever talk to them.
Yeah, I think we've always told our story. I think we've got a really good story, too, to tell about RE Garrison. But we've always heard a picture's worth 1,000 words, and a video probably adds to that several times. So a video and a picture and a movie telling somebody that story just seems to be so much more impactful.
It's interesting. I remember 10 years ago when I started, actually 11 years ago today, I started KJ Media, and during my research phase, I went to a Facebook, annual summit, and they said, 10 to 12 years from now, everything's going to be video, everything we do. And that, if you're B2B advertising, you need to do it. B2C, recruitment advertising, everyone will want a day in the life. And specifically in recruiting, what does that really look like? And, it is such a competitive market, and there's a lot of buzzwords that go around the industry between the black and white of a resume, right? But video, to your point, Shawn, is the way to capture those million words in a split stance. And the amount of drivers right now that are on YouTube, that's the platforms that's performing the best. Whether it's Facebook, but they're driving right to YouTube, and we got Google in there. So that's a really smart approach to look at it that way. We also find that in that initial interest from a driver to a trucking company, include that in the messaging. Here's a day in the life. Meet Tracy, and it just puts that family feel, face to the name. And in a world where drivers are, spend a lot of time on their own, it makes it feel more comfortable from the get-go. So I think that's incredible that you guys are going in that process right now. How do you guys ensure a steady flow of candidates in this competitive market? Or what are some of your competitive advantages in this current market to attract drivers?
So we always say that our current drivers are our best source.
Yep.
And we have a really strong referral program. We have a really strong driver finishing program, which generates a good many referrals for us of already qualified drivers who don't necessarily require the finishing program. But it creates an excitement from the beginning of, it's really not about where you start, it's about where you finish, and that we can give more opportunity for a less experienced driver to gain that experience from a current driver. And so our driver referral program is still our main source of applications. And I'm really proud of that, because I know that we see that kind of rise and fall in our industry a good bit with the market, with the equipment. You just see carriers kind of trend through that over and over of when their drivers are really satisfied. And I think our driver engagement team at Garrison does a really good job of targeting satisfaction over happiness. We kind of, I don't want to say that we aren't trying to stay in tune with their emotions, but for the most part, we do drive towards satisfaction. Because regardless of an emotional day, a quick stop, a four-wheeler that's not paying great attention, or a truck stop that doesn't have your favorite hot dog, your emotions are going to move a lot faster than your level of satisfaction. And Shawn can probably speak a lot better to that than I can. He participates heavily in our driver engagement team.
Yeah, and our drivers, they like to know that you're listening to them. So when they refer someone, they're typically referring someone they trust a lot, which is great for us. It's almost as good as getting a video of that person talking about video. It's almost as good as getting a picture into their life. If they're referring a friend to us, they build long-term friendships while they're on the road. If they're referring those people to come work in a family with them, we can probably trust them a lot better too. And it works out well for us. But it's also a sense of pride for us that our partners that work with us want to bring their other people in, whether it be family members, friends, or just someone they happen to meet at another orientation once before. Said, hey, this is a destination. This is not our next job. This is where we're going to finish. So it's a sense of pride for us, but it's also a sense of pride for the driver to know that we're listening to them.
People, bottom line, want to feel, heard, valued and respected, and listening being heard is one solution. It's not, there's no $1 million solution here, right? Every company is so different, but listening to drivers in hearing what their experience is like, and maybe sometimes you can't do much about the relationship with the shipper, or there's just certain things you can't, Tracy, to your point, they wanted a Nathan's hot dog and there's only a Hebrew hot dog there, right? There's only so much that you guys can do, but having that relationship to be able to know that they can discuss those challenges with you, and it's on your radar, right? And you'll keep that, on your radar until a solution gets found. I think is a big piece. A lot of times trucking companies will say, well, we can't change. We can't, we have these contracts in place. Just listen right now and just let them know it's top of mind. I want to circle back to the driver engagement team. Tell us more about that.
Top to bottom, it's everything that is driver. We're driver focused here. So the driver engagement team works with people that maybe had problems in business. That happens in our business. Some people are as far along as others in business. So we work with that, but it also is someone that has a sick family member. We have somebody DoorDash food over to the family that's sick, so that their family member could stay out on the road and continue to grow his business while they've got a sick member. You don't have to go home for that. So it's top to bottom a driver-focused program. A lot like Tracy said on satisfaction. It's not necessarily to keep them happy, because sometimes work is not happy. It's not always It's not always bubble gum and lollipops, but satisfaction is important. Satisfied. And sometimes it's listening to their problems. Sometimes we can solve their problems. And sometimes we could just work through the issues and see if we can all do better. Maybe they can do a better job. Maybe we could do a better job. But it works that we all get on the same page and have that discussion so that we know that we're at least trying. They're trying, we're trying. 9 times out of 10, if we're both trying, we'd work something out.
I would add to that I think the thing that Garrison gets really right within that driver engagement team, they were formerly called driver success, and a lot of that really based on the driver. So we said, let's take a different approach and how are we engaging with these drivers. And so we're really fortunate at Garrison that 3 members of that 5-person team are former drivers. So when we need translation, there's a couple of us around here who are not former drivers, and we need translation. It's not having to have the driver feel like we didn't value them enough, that they didn't have the right listening ear. We can kind of work through it on our end from the driver's perspective. And then a lot of times the things that I've seen our driver engagement team do that I appreciate from the outside is they ask the driver for a solution. They say, we hear you, but if you were the end of this, what would the solution look like? And we can work back from there. And I think speaking to someone who has the same experience as you kind of lends that driver to feel like that they had a vote. They voted on, they had the idea. And then to see one of those suggestions come to life is really satisfying for that driver to be able to say to another driver, hey, you had a really good day today because there were new lights at a customer's lot. Well, that was my suggestion. And they can kind of have some pride in the ownership of that. So I think that our engagement team is a little different that I know from some of the other carriers that we work with, in that we do have former drivers on that team.
I absolutely love that. First, there's 2 things I just want to unpack here. The satisfaction, I think that's a big piece because like you were saying, every day trucking is a difficult industry to be in. There's out of control situations, weather, right? Is just one example, especially recently. But there's a lot of uncontrollables in our industry that we just can't control. With having that mindset and having a company where you're basically, it's open door to have that communication right from the beginning and realize, listen, we're here to help. And then on top of that, what's your solution to this problem? I think that's a really interesting approach to circle the driver back to what it's all about, which is building that relationship between the driver and the trucking company by taking in their opinion. And not, I would say probably most of the time that the solution to that problem is probably spot on because they're in it, they're working in it, they're living in it. And sometimes it's outside of our control. So those are 2 incredible, skill sets within the company that you guys are able to have with your drivers. I want to jump to the Crown Driver Program. Tracy, tell me more about this. This is such an incredible program. Tell the audience.
The Crown Driver Program was born about 2 years ago for really aligning recognition. I think a lot of times, in my experience, if you ask safety to put up their number 1 driver, and then you ask operations to put up their number 1 driver, and you ask the settlements crew to put up you're going to get 3 different drivers or 4 different drivers. So we really wanted to be able to align it and say, what looks like success at Garrison? Like what boxes are there are deal breaker boxes that a driver has to check these boxes as our representation on the roadway, as our representation in the industry, for us to say that driver is, top notch in operations, top notch in safety, top notch in customer service, top notch on vehicle maintenance. And so we put together the Crown Driver KPIs. And one of the really cool things about the Crown Driver program is at Garrison, they're kept promises indicators. So we say, okay, we promise you that we're going to always have a list a year. We're going to always have open shops. We're going to, be able to meet your maintenance needs, and we're going to listen when you need home time. So what are your promises to us? And we're going to keep our promises. You keep yours. And so when the driver is able to be successful in those 7 areas, month after month after month, they progress through the stars. So they'll go 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and then they reach a crown status. Something pretty cool is, as a mom of boys, is that it's like a video, like there's no backing up. That level that you've earned is your level. And then it adds monetary value to the driver's settlements. Every mile is increased for that driver once they're a crown status. They receive an invitation to participate in our driver council, which is another way to be heard at Garrison. It's a group of crown drivers that comes together twice a year with our executive leadership. And we say, this is what you told us last time. This is the progress that we've made. What do you tell us now? And so they keep our executive leadership team moving towards driver satisfaction all the time. They also have invitations to participate in truck driving championships. And then their truck receives the designation of a big crown on the side of their tractor, which is really cool. So I think it's important to like the tractor as well. That's the driver's home place, workplace. And so it really creates some buzz and some branding. And then the drivers get what we feel like kind of favors a military service ring that's on their person that says, I'm a crown driver. And then once they've reached that status, they move more forward in miles. So every mile that a driver drives after their crown driver goes to their emerald status, their ruby status, and their diamond status, which would be a driver with 1 million crown miles. And so we have some drivers that are clearly on track to be diamond crown drivers. I'm super excited about it. We started the program in March of 22, I believe, maybe 23. 22. And we started with a class of 58 drivers, and we're well over 100 drivers now. I think we're about 130 drivers in the program now. So it's really exciting. The program is kind of self-propelled now, which is really nice. But I think that it's important at Garrison that we know what kind of drivers we align with, and that they know what kind of carrier they align with. And our goal is that every driver's success is shown in their crown status, and it's equal and level. The KPIs are equal for all terminals, all tractor types, all customers, all lanes, same 7 KPIs. And I think it's important that we're not constantly changing the expectation.
And Tracy's been very modest. She did that. We had 3 different failed programs going into that, where we were trying to reward people for good behavior. And she saw a chance to set those expectations. And it's a way to, as she said, we give them our expectations, we give them expectations, and we can measure each other to see if we're doing our end of the bargain. And it seems to work out very well, because we have drivers come up and want to know where they're at in their status. How far along am I? And no one ever walked in to ask about their safety bonus or their fuel mileage bonus or any of that. But they're coming up to find out where they are in this. From time to time, we have people that want to be a trainer or want to be a truck driving championship participant or something. And that's an opportunity for our success team to look at them and say, where are you at on your KPIs? Do you need to improve fuel mileage? Do you need to, is there something you're doing wrong in compliance, or are you meeting all of these expectations? If you are, it's easy. You're progressing forward, and like 6 months or 9 months or whatever, getting to that point where you could qualify for this. It's a great way for a driver to make sure we're meeting our expectations. It's a great way for us to ask them if they're meeting their expectations. But that's a program that Tracy and her team put together, again, with a lot of input from other people asking questions. What would you like to see, and how can we measure this? And it's just a tremendous program. I think it's been as big a change as we've had in our organization to put drivers first and to show them that you can check us. Here's how you can check us. It's not changing all the time.
Right.
Here's the metrics you were given when you came here. Are you meeting them or are you not? Are we meeting ours or are we not? And it's important for us to be able to be upfront, honest, and open with our drivers. And it's a program she put a lot of time into. She's being modest talking about the organization doing it. She put that together, and the organization has bought into it.
But I will say that I've been really proud of the buy-in from the other organizations within Garrison, because it's not weighted any heavier on roadway safety than it is service, or than it is on-time delivery, or, making sure that your documents are in on time. So all of those pieces from every department within Garrison is represented. And I think that gives us an alignment on what does success mean. And it means that you get these 7 things and all the million things that it takes to get those 7 things right. And this is what right looks like. This is what the score has to be. And then being able to sit down with the driver and say, we understand that you're not happy today, but this is what we said to you. We said, we're going to give you equipment that will perform at this standard. You can get to this MPGs in our equipment if it's maintained well, or you can deliver on time and within hours of service, because we make that commitment to you for how we're going to pre-assign or what loads are going to be offered to you. But here's where your shortcomings were. And vice versa. They can look at us and say, you think that you gave me a pre-assignment in time to make an on-time delivery, but here's where I accepted the load, and this is the time that it was. And so we're now seeing as much give and take and opportunities to train. One of our core values is lifelong learning, and we really tap into, when a driver checks us, we appreciate it, because it gives us an opportunity to say, okay, what department is that within? And were we clear in our expectation to a driver manager? Were we clear in our expectation to an operational safety person? And maybe someone was sick on the day they got trained and we weren't clear on that objective. Right. Or maybe we had a system failure and the email didn't zip over where it should. So it gives us a really, and rigid is friendly in that sense. It gives us a really rigid standard, and these are the expectations and how we can educate to the expectation for the driver or the support.
Well, Tracy, first and foremost, bravo. I mean, kudos to you. That is an incredible program. And, before you mentioned that Tracy was the pioneer behind this, my first thought was, how did you get to this type of program? There are so many different types of ways to measure success. And, I'm sure with the input of the drivers, it was a lot of, fine tuning, but you guys got there. And one thing I often talk about with the industry is setting those expectations right from the front and not changing them. That's a really big piece, because as soon as you change them, even if it's a little thing, you start breaking down that trust. You start breaking down that relationship in a negative way. Obviously, things happen, technology happens, and there's issues that come around that. But having a process, those KPIs, and staying consistent is really what it's all about. And when it comes down to it, drivers may have the grass is greener on the other side for a couple of weeks, but they'll know that your company is doing everything in its powers to stay true to the expectations that you guys put together from day one of onboarding. And I think that's a big game changer. And I'd love to see more trucking companies in the industry adopt that same philosophy of setting those expectations right from the front, and however they want to, put the program together. But really importantly, looking at, is this what we all agreed upon? And it's no different than how we would hire on in-office staff, or, you guys are executives, or, for me, directors or CEOs. it's a lengthy process of expectations from the beginning, and it's something that we're all talking about constantly. And so having that same philosophy with drivers just builds that relationship right from the beginning and continuously. I absolutely loved some of the footage I saw out there on social media of the big crowd, the kings and queens of the road. So, that's an incredible recognition to have. And I want to jump over to retention, right? We discussed a lot of different ways that your team, definitely retains your drivers, which is good in the industry. But I'd love to have you guys explain to the audience, like what are you finding to be those best tools to retain the drivers, especially in the first 90 days? That's where we usually see a lot of high turnover in our space.
I think starting right off the bat, partnership and the support that they could get, the business model of having one truck and one trailer and one customer that you're working is far past now. The larger companies are taking hold for several different reasons. It could be because of drop trailers. It could be just because of finances are easier at a larger organization. Several different reasons the larger companies are taking hold, but when you can give that support to a driver from day one, offer them a way to come get that support, whether it be business support, to teach them how to set a budget, teach them how to be prepared. You mentioned weather earlier. We never know ahead of time when you're going to be shut down for weather, but you may still need a paycheck that Friday. And most of us did, right? So how do you have your business prepared to have a paycheck, even though the weather shuts you down this week? Being prepared to help people like that, help them with the fuel purchasing, helping them, not police them. I think another thing Tracy does really well, the safety department at RE Garrison is not a police force within RE Garrison. It's a support part. Just like every other department in RE Garrison, we joke around here that we have two jobs. You're either a driver or you support drivers. That's from the ownership all the way down. So my position at the very bottom, it does not matter what you do. You either drive a truck or you support that driver. And our safety team is a support mechanism. Our engagement team, obviously, just simply by the name shows you that it's there for that. But operations, everybody's here to support drivers. Our cleaning staff, everything revolves around supporting our driver here at RE Garrison. So I think setting up that partnership right up front helps with retention. If they have a problem, they come to us. Again, we can work it out. If we're both working on that, if we offered them a job up front, gave them expectations, and gave them what they could expect from us, if something's not working, we could just get on the phone and work that out, find out who's failing at their expectations. Is it us? Let's fix what we're doing.
Right.
Is it them? Let's fix what we're doing wrong. We've got to follow through with the expectations on both sides, or it doesn't work for either one.
That's a clear indicator right from the beginning, and obviously a lot of what you do is on helping these drivers with their budgeting and their P&L statements, which unfortunately is something that isn't taught, from the get-go. So having that program as part of the recruiting and retention tool, right? It's a tool in the toolbox. That's all it is. But educating them on how to run the most profitable, weekly business based off of their settlements because the gas prices are going up. That's just giving them more education to be, successful in this space. And again, there's going to be challenges across the board. Let me ask you this: with, the industry, kind of a softer market, it is a softer market right now. We're recording this in May of 2024, but with the industry where it's at, and definitely will pick up probably post election. We have quite a year ahead of us. What advice would you give to new recruiters that just joined the trucking industry, and and maybe they have some experience in this space, but really want to get their, jump right all in. What advice would you give some new recruiters on this industry and some best practices from the get-go?
I think the number one thing that we coach into our recruiters is it is about those relationships, that one-to-one, listening to that driver. We've seen it shift over time from the interview is us asking the questions, but actually giving space for that driver to tell us their story, and then us be able to make fair decisions for us and the driver and say, I appreciate that you're a driver and that you move America forward, but there's no way Garrison's going to meet your expectation. And allowing that driver not enabling them to make a wrong decision on purpose. One of the things you hear in our recruiting department is we're going to get it wrong. We're going to, as long as we're working, we're going to get things wrong. But as long as we're not getting it wrong on purpose, we're going to continue to move these drivers forward. And knowing when we're not going to be able to meet the expectation for each driver on the front end, and being able to communicate that why. This is why we can't. Or, we don't run the Northeast. We don't have any freight there. We appreciate that you're a proud Pennsylvanian. We can't accommodate your home time. And being able to say that and then telling the full truth and then not being sorry for it. We're R.E. Garrison. We're a southeastern refrigerated carrier. We ship some cross country freight, but by and large we're a southeastern carrier. We run Freightliner and Cascades. We're not going to put you in a Western Star at Garrison, but knowing who we are, what we run, and what we offer that driver, and then knowing going in that we're not going to be a good fit for every driver. So we're not just chasing that number. We're really chasing that person that's going to be a good partner for Garrison, because ultimately when their individual business fails, we fail also.
And Jackie, I would just add, if I could, the advice I would give to a driver coming into the market this time, I think they need to keep an open mind more so than ever before, as long as I've been doing this anyway. Because 5 years ago, I could say I need a load going to a specific city at a specific time, and that load was available. Somebody could get that load pretty quickly. This day and age, that load's not available. The driver has to keep an open mind on where they're willing to go and what they're willing to do. Stretch out their comfort zone a little bit. Keep an open mind about business, about your budget. Your budget is going to be different today than it was in 20, but it'll be different today than it is in 25 or 26 as well. Have to keep an open mind and flexibility when it comes to budgeting and setting up your business to be successful. Because what worked 10 years ago will not work today, I promise. But it's going to change again tomorrow. It changes constantly. You have to keep an open mind going into it. This is not a job where you get set in and it's written in stone. Here's what you're going to do all the time, and here's what you're going to make all the time. You have to have flexibility.
I think being nimble is so key in today's world, and not to say 20 years ago it wasn't that way, and we're constantly evolving as humans, but now the rapid technology and how quickly it's moving and how quickly we're able to access information and get information. Sometimes it's a little too much information out there, right? Analysis is paralysis is a phrase I use quite often. But being open to the possibilities of what things could look like, and planning for the worst, hope for the best type mentality, because it's shifting. It's constantly shifting. I was just talking to a customer right before this, and they were a driver themselves, and they saw themselves out on the road for years. Now they're director of recruitment for the trucking company, and things shift, things change. And I think that's a really important message for all drivers too, whether it's your career path, whether it's from going from a company to a 1099 contractor, or looking at new companies to work with. So I think that's a really great message. And we're getting a lot of new drivers in the industry that don't have the family we're friends necessarily in the industry as much so as we did, 10 years ago. And so podcasts out there like the ones that you guys do and listening and being open is just, it's so critical for today's world and today's success. Now, final question. We have our drivers we have 250,000 drivers in our newsletter, and we send weekly updates to them. We are absolutely going to showcase this podcast, but in 30 seconds or less, could you tell our drivers why they should consider a partnership with RE Garrison?
I would love to. I think a lot of people can offer freight. A lot of people can offer a job. We all have basically the same equipment. We all drive on the same highways, buy the same fuel, haul for the same customers. What makes us different? I think it's people. I think it's a process that we've put in place to support drivers that are out there. We give drivers a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility, more so than most carriers, I think. But with that comes a lot of responsibility. But part of our responsibility that we do, once we hire somebody, we try to hire the right person that will be a fit for us, and then teach them what our successful people are doing to be successful. And a lot of that is responsibility to do their part. We do our expectations, they do our expectations, and this works out pretty good.
Incredible. Expectation right from the get-go. Pride, excellence is the definition of RE Garrison. Let me say this, Shawn and Tracy, it was an absolute pleasure to have you guys on our show today. And for all drivers that are listening to this podcast, the link to RE Garrison website will be in the show notes below, as well as the career page. And we will be linking Shawn's podcast as well, so you guys can listen into that. Any last words for us?
No, thank you so much for having us. We think RE Garrison is pretty great, and being able to tell the drivers that from your platform has been a really big pleasure for us.
Yes, thanks for having us, Jackie. We appreciate it.
It's been great. And so that concludes another episode of Attention Retention. And thank you for our listeners for tuning in. A special heartfelt thank you to both you, Tracy and Shawn at RE Garrison. Remember, the road to success begins with effective recruitment, thoughtful retention, and genuine recognition. Feel free to share this knowledge with your peers and industry colleagues. Your sharing can make a difference, and together we can empower the industry to thrive. Until next time.